Passing all different kinds of blame from person to person. But the fault lies in all of you! You! Who bought that $300,000 house when you only had $20,000 to put down! You! Who bought that third car even though only 2 people in your home drive! It is time to stop pointing fingers! Finger pointing gets us nowhere! Steve!
Medical Journal had tracked 1,900 people, young people ages 14 to 24 over a 10-year period. And the main conclusion of this study is that those teens and young adults who used cannabis were about twice as likely as those who didn't to develop symptoms of psychosis. By psychosis, I mean psychotic break, so having paranoid thoughts, delusions of grandeur, voices in their head compelling them to do things that can harm themselves or others.
Now, are they sure that it was the marijuana that caused those reactions?
Very important question, because the association has been there for a long time, but to get at cause and effect, they had to design a well-controlled study. So the researchers excluded anyone who reported cannabis use or pre-existing psychotic symptoms prior to the study or at the start of the study. The study also controlled for factors like social status or wealth, because that can influence whether or not you develop psychotic symptoms, and the use of other illicit drugs like crystal meth or cocaine, which in and of themselves can trigger psychotic symptoms. This was the first study to demonstrate that marijuana use precedes the onset of psychotic symptoms. The one thing we don't know is it that the marijuana triggers the psychosis, or it unmasks a pre-existing tendency to develop psychosis? We don't know. I tend to think it's probably the latter. The other thing that we found from this study, that researchers found from this study, that is that the more the people in the study used marijuana, the more times they used it, the more intense the experience, the more likely they were to develop psychotic symptoms. So that also speaks to cause and effect.
Are you seeing a lot of this in the ER?
Yeah. I would say that if you ask a young person who's having a psychotic break, whether it's in their late teens or early 20s, do they use marijuana? More often than not, they're going to say they do.
Oh my God.
In addition to that, I'm also seeing an occasional group of patients, once in a while, somebody who is in their teens or 20s who appear to be having their first psychotic break, and the first inclination is to send them immediately to the psychiatric hospital. One of the things we do in preparation for that is to get a tox screen. So send off urine and blood for toxicological screening to see if they've got drugs on board. Meanwhile, they go off to sleep. And often when they wake up, by now you've got the tox screen back, they've got some alcohol on board, they've got some marijuana on board, and there's tox screen back. Alcohol on board, they've got some marijuana on board, and they're calm, and they no longer exhibit psychotic symptoms. And in that case, you're actually scratching your head and wondering what happened here, and it may well be that marijuana triggered the episode.
Is there anything different about marijuana that people are buying off the street these days? Are we talking about different types of marijuana?
Well, not different types, but certainly, what my psychiatry colleagues, those who have an interest in addiction medicine, are telling me that this is not your grandmother's marijuana. That this marijuana is, I know, picturing my grandmother smoking marijuana.
Sorry, it was just a vision for me there for a moment.
Very hard to picture that one as well. But what they would say is that the marijuana today is more pure. It may be higher potency, and therefore triggering more intense symptoms. In addition to that, maybe laced with other substances that can trigger psychotic symptoms. So no, it's not your grandmother's marijuana.
I mean, the Reefer Madness was from the 30s, wasn't it, the film? So
on the other hand, they have now labeled a species of marijuana, Charlie Sheen variety, out in California right now because of you-know-who.
Oh, wow. That's a badge of honor right there. Do doctors see the same effect with medical marijuana?
No, we don't. And, it begs the question why. We can speculate. One reason may be that it's taken in pill form very often, and if it is in pill form, it may not saturate the receptors in the brain to the same extent as the marijuana that you smoke. It's pharmaceutical grade, the medical marijuana, so you're less likely to have it laced with other chemicals that could induce psychosis. And then I guess the other major factor is that who takes medical marijuana but older people? And I don't mean old people, but older people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and they're past the age of onset of psychosis. So, we think that if this is going to happen, triggering psychosis, it's going to occur in people at risk of a first psychotic break, which means people in their teens and 20s.
So the take-home message?
Take-home message is if you are a young person and, this is another reason not to smoke marijuana, and if you do have your first psychotic first psychotic break, I would warn any patient, don't take any more marijuana if you did in the past, because, we don't want you to have a major psychotic break, and if not smoking marijuana can help prevent that, then I'm all for it.
All right. Dr. Goldman, thanks for this.
You're welcome.
How's Dr. Brian Goldman, the host of White Coat Black Art on CBC Radio 1. His new book, The Night Shift, Real Life in the Heart of the ER, is published by HarperCollins. Any thoughts? All in a day at cbc.ca.
All in a day at cbc.ca. Take this home. They're trying to blame all the effects of alcohol on marijuana. Really. It's that simple. They want you to drink. They don't want you to smoke. You don't even need to smoke it. Just eat it. Eat it or get the oil and rub it on your skin. Because it's good for you. It's going to help you with all of this stuff that's going on that's just killing all our family members. Anyway. Enjoy drinking, I guess, but all the stuff they're talking about, totally the symptoms of alcohol abuse. Just a little bit of alcohol abuse. I'm sorry. This is truth.